can't. Gotta look at that number in conjunction with
Test.
this one, this one,
Test.
and this one, and this one. Because as long as these
This-
are fine, we
Can you hear me?
this one.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
But I don't know that.
Hello? Testing, testing.
Okay.
Let me get my mic adjusted here. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our creative competition. We will get underway. I will turn down the lights. We'll bring up the screen for the people at home. You could see, and we'll start off with some of our announcements. Okay, great. Next week, forget it. Don't come. Next week is one of our rare days. We are closed for Thanksgiving, so there'll be no production next Friday evening on November 24th. But starting right after that, December 1st, Deb Zimmerman and her crew will be doing another live tabletop workshop. We'll have macros set up, all different stations. Bring your cameras in. That's always a well-attended and fun night. Beer for everyone, so come on down. That is December 8th, Zoom presentation. We haven't done a Zoom in a while. With Tom Croce, who has done stuff for us in the past. He's good. This is a little different lecture. It's interesting on conservation photography. He's taken on a number of projects where he works in the national parks, or sometimes things like the metro parks, and does documentation and projects for them. And he's going to talk about not only some of his projects, but how you can get involved in that. So that'll be a Zoom presentation. The clubhouse will be open, so come on down. December 15th is another interesting one. It's going to be a live presentation, so this will be a lecture that'll be here in the clubhouse. And Lucas Sportelli, and he's an Akron native. And he actually not only does dance photography, but he is a dancer. So he got into dance, and he has a really interesting kind of life journey as to how he actually got into photography. He also does project photography and other types too. But he's really going to be showcasing his work and talking about how he really had his journey into photography. That is on December 15th, live and in the clubhouse. Next SIG meeting, December 7th, with Dave Bush, will be focus stacking. Everything involving in-camera focus stacking is on the cameras that can do that, as well as Helicon and all of the programs that you can use if your camera doesn't do it, and the techniques of focus stacking and how you could really do that. So that should be interesting. That is the December 7th SIG meeting. Tomorrow is Pixel Connections Winter Demo Day. Lots of gifts and special offers for CPS members. To sign up for that, you could sign up on our website. Just go to the members only section, just enter your credentials, sign in there, and you can actually get the certificates needed for tomorrow's Winter Demo Day. And Dodd Company is having a winter savings event and expo, December 8th and 9th. There's going to be factory reps there, free seminars, demos, prizes, giveaways, printmakings, a lot of exclusive deals that day. In the website, on the homepage, I have a link. It's more about this. So just click on that link, and that takes you to the website where more about Dodd's Winter Savings Event and Expo. There are a few things left still on our free table, which have been there for quite a while up front. So I'm starting to feel unlucky. They might even work for all I know. But there's an old carousel. I'm telling you, these are going to come back. And then you're going to wish you would have picked it up. So it's up there. If you want it, just take it home with you, too. Again, because December 1st, we're starting our new CPS policy. Returning students, it'll be a $10 flat fee. That'll help cover the rising costs of both technology and administration. And our schools, again, our winter courses, Intro to Photoshop Photo Editing, Fundamentals of Good Photography, Intermediate Photoshop Photo Editing are all starting this winter. This is an excellent time to sign up. Lightroom will be starting again in the spring. And finally, save the date. I'm going to keep pushing this every week, so I want that date saved. January 27th. It's a Saturday for our annual Cabin Fever Party. Food, prizes, robbers auction, lots of fun. We started doing this. This has been an every year tradition. With COVID, we didn't do it for a few years. Started last year. It had a blast. So again, just put it on your calendar. And like every time, all of our public meetings are on our YouTube channel. Just go to our homepage on the website, the upper right hand, click the YouTube icon. When you get onto YouTube, just click the live section and you'll see all of our talks there as well. The Zoom calls and other things that are members only are on our website under the members only content. So with that, we will get into our creative night. And first thing I'm going to do is to introduce the judges. Our judges for tonight, first one is George Kosar. George Kosar is an artist and illustrator and a past adjunct faculty member of Ashland University. He's a Bay Village resident, and he's had more than 50 solo shows. His work has also been exhibited in 400 group shows across the United States, most notably numerous Butler mid-year shows in Youngstown and the Cleveland Museum of Art May Show. He has won numerous awards, including a Jurors Award at the Butler Institute of Art in 1985 and 1998, and Best of Show at the Ohio Exposition Center in Columbus in 1998. He's listed in Who's Who in American Art, and his illustrations have graced the pages of numerous newspapers, magazines, including The Plain Dealer, Esquire, Playboy, GQ, New York Times, and The Washington Post. Our second judge is Mark Braun. Mark Braun's interest in photography began as a teenager when his parents gave him his first single-lens reflex camera. He honed his technical and artistic skills on yearbooks, college projects, freelance newspaper work, and product photography. He then put his camera away for 20 years to pursue a business career until a trip to Yellowstone National Park in 2000 reawakened his passion for photography. Mark developed specialties in nature photography, producing detailed images of flowers, trees, mushrooms, and landscapes, particularly from the Rocky Mountains. His studies also encompass water scenes, architecture, birds, people at unusual angles on everyday settings. His vision is to capture the unusual and present in a way that captures the viewer's curiosity and interest. A transplant to St. Louis from his hometown in Cleveland, Mark served on the task force that brought the International Photography Hall of Fame to St. Louis and is currently co-chair of the board of directors and co-chair of the Collections Committee and a member of the Hall of Fame Induction Committee. He's also a longtime member of the St. Louis Camera Club, where he served many roles, including board member, co-chair of seminars for 5 years, and frequently judging competitions. He's also a member of the Kirkwood's Art Commission and Kirkwood Arts Foundation. His own photographs have been displayed in such St. Louis venues as the Foundry Art Center, St. Louis Artists Guild, and the 2008 Gallery. And our third judge is Susan Onisco, who devoted her last 2 decades to the art of photography. She first dipped her toes into the world of travel photography, learning from some of the best instructors in the world. This proved to be opportune as travel photography encompasses many genres, giving her an expansive, strong base in landscape, culture, people, wildlife, street photography, and much more. From there, she developed a simple, minimalistic style for unexpected images that evoke subject's purest essence. To enhance her travel images, Susan started using flash to add more sparkle to her portraits, and this led her down a rabbit hole into the world of studio photography. Susan photographed portraits and wedding locally for many years, but has always yearned to photograph subjects who are a bit more exotic. Her children introduced her to the world of cosplay at a comic convention in 2016, and the project Cosplay 50, the United States of Cosplay, was born. She is traveling with her studio to all 50 states to photograph cosplayers at these cosplay conventions. And as of 2023, she will have photographed cosplayers in 31 states. So those are our judges for tonight. And now we will get on to our competition. And let me bring up the images. Okay, our first image of the night.
Okay, Susan says, I'm in love with this image. It is so intriguing, I want to know more. Is it a high-key image of fog and fall trees? That's my guess, but whatever it is perfection in a creative fall image. I love the patterns, the colors, the mood. Very hard for me to say anything negative. As if it were mine, it would already be hanging on my wall. Lovely.
Asian Autumn by Jane Sidney, 23 points.
George K. says, nice placement of the bee in the flower. Sound composition. The couple of bubbles floating outside of the flower kind of bother me. Don't know exactly what they are. I would have photoshopped them out.
Bees by Eric Wethington, 19 points.
Mark says, the maker did a nice job and pushed the limits of creative into the abstract category. Their choice of color combinations is very pleasing. By including the partial U-shape at the top right of the image, offset the composition, creating even more tension. Compositionally, I'd consider cropping the image on the left to push the U-shape more off-center for more impact.
Boom by Dave Saborik, 24 points, honorable mention.
Susan says, I know a lot of people have strong feelings about one-color black and white images. I personally have some hanging in my house that I love, and I always admire when photographers attempt this, as it shows some skill for sure with Photoshop. In general, I like for background and foreground of a photograph to meld together seamlessly, one to enhance the other. I think here this would be much more complementary if the fence was not in the background. We have a beautiful slice of nature scene and then this hard, dark bar structure behind it. This could be achieved by changing your angle, zooming in with your feet or lens, even chasing down that beautiful butterfly to a more subtle scene. I have to wonder, is yellow the actual color of the butterfly? Even more impressive if not. Keep up the great creative Photoshop work. It's a process and your results will continue to improve and encourage you to do more and more.
Butterfly by Gary Merritt, 20 points.
George says, there's a problem in my mind that the streaks outside the cabins look like it's raining, yet there is no evidence of wetness on the roofs of the cabin. The composition seems weighted to the left. I would have centered the buildings. Oh, that's it. I would have centered the buildings. There is an idea here, but I don't know if it was completely thought out.
Cabins in the Fall Woods by Mike Kopkis, 22 points.
This is another good example of going abstract, Mark says, eliminating most of the recognizable components of the image. Placement of what appears to be a water droplet near the center of the composition is offset by its shape and running it off the top of the image. At first thought, I questioned the choice of colors used to frame the water droplet, but see that it mirrors colors in the center, but they are bright enough that they also distract some from the focal point.
Cleveland Botanical Gardens by Dave Saborik, 22 points.
Susan says, did you pose these cars? I really like the mix of colors between the front car and back, and that the front car is tack sharp. I would love to see it a bit more creatively. Did you try some other slow shutter speeds? Pan and blur that the car move with the car at 1/20th, 1/30th of a second shutter speed? Being on tripod to do these techniques would blow your mind. I love the fact that there is distinctive separation between the cars, no merging. Nice job, and I imagine not super easy with them moving.
Color Collision by Jordan Tetzel, 17 points.
A kaleidoscopic collage of the arcade. Interesting idea, but it seems to lack focus. The center part is a little murky to me. I like the repeated images of the big globe. Ties the composition together.
Converging by Joe DiStefano, 22 points.
Mark says this reminds me of the opening of a 007 film. This represents a well thought out use of distortion to lead the viewer's eye right to the subject of the women, and adding selective color to an otherwise monotone print gives it a very strong impact. Overall, it's a very well done image.
Emerging from the Pursuit of Perfection by Jill Zabka, 26 points, second place.
Susan says, one of my personal favorites of the night. I love the spooky, alien-esque creation you made here. I am wondering what it would look like as a moody black and white image also. It might give it just a tad more oomph and impact. So spooky, perfect time of year for this. I also love the crop ratio you did on this. Absolutely perfect.
Enter If You Dare, Brian O'Riordan, 25 points, third place.
A pretty... Man, I cannot read that word for the life of me. Bannel? I don't even know what that means, but we'll get past that. My lexicon is pretty limited, so that's not saying much. Anyway, a pretty banal image that the photographer tried to make it interesting using filters. The color combinations don't appeal to me. The red is too intense, like a sore thumb.
That's the end? That's it? Fall Trees in Ohio by Graham Stead, 21 points.
At first glance, Mark says, I thought Ferris wheel, but no, it could be images of a building overlaid on each other, but, question mark, while the category creative doesn't have to be abstract, it does invite many abstractions, and this is a good example. The viewer is engaged by the shapes, colors, and arrangements, and has to relate without knowing what the subject really is. It's difficult to judge composition of an image like this, but putting the center of the wheel off-center and leaving a void at the bottom right enhance the image so it doesn't appear static.
Ferris Wheel Fantasy, Marge Brady, 22 points.
Susan says, this is such an interesting image. I love the concept. I am thinking maybe just doing a studio shot of this would simplify the background and give this a bit more impact. It's so close. However, you got those marbles floating is pure perfection. I just think the foreground and background is a bit too busy for the subject, and some parts of the foreground background seem a bit over sharpened and pixelated. The selection compositing job is outstanding. Wish I could make one so clean.
Flight of Fancy by Jerry Payno. Payno? Jerry Payno, 23 points.
According to George, this is another photo taking a realistic scene and abstract it using filters. Nothing about this photo intrigues me.
That's Florida Wetland by Jane Sidney, 22 points.
Mark says, here the maker went to great lengths to create a story of a barnyard. The composition of the animals is such that they create a diagonal from the bottom left to top right and marvelously balance out the negative space. In addition, the toning and the masking around the edges create a sense of age that enhances the story, creating a fairy tale-like scene.
Hierarchy Antiqued by Nancy Muriak, 27 points, first place. Is Nancy here?
Is Nancy here?
Is Nancy here?
Nancy is not here. Well, Nancy, next time you're in the club, we have a ribbon for you.
We show the rest of the people the ribbon.
Yeah, once I find it. So this is. Ah! Sorry, I just got caught. Anyway, this is the beautiful 27 ribbon that she'll be receiving when she does come to the club next time. Congrats.
Susan says, this is a great, sharp image and one I am positive this couple loves. I would love to see you take the creativity to another level. Playing with shutter speed, getting lower, maybe having just the wheel moving behind them, more waist up on them, or use longer lens, with some swirly colors going on behind them, a silhouette of the two of them looking at each other, kissing, doing the hover kiss before the kiss. Options are endless. Maybe even add a touch of flash on them with all that going on. You have all that amazing elements right here. Go play, play, play.
Is That a Yes? By Fran Marino, 21 points.
George says, this is a beautiful image. Beautiful texture, combination, and color throughout. Looks very ominous and mysterious. Great job.
On the Fence by Jackie Sayuski, 27 points, first place.
And once again, Jackie will be receiving a 27 ribbon for her achievement. So congrats, Jackie.
My immediate response to this image was fun, Mark says. Balls or marbles or bubbles floating in air are always entertaining. While the mug is centered in the image, the placement of and distributions by size of the bubbles helps offset the mug's placement. Contributing to the overall fun factor is that the most bubbles almost look like the moon. My only suggestion would be able to play with the shape and placement of the steam. It seems too static. Maybe softening the edges or widening the column to engulf all the bubbles would help.
Potent Potable by Mike Kopkis, 25 points, third place.
Susan says, what is this? King Kong coming out of a waterfall? It definitely has impact, that is for sure. I also love the shutter speed you used here for Beast in the Mist. I still want to know more though, but then I don't. This is quite the mysterious image and you probably want that to be the point. I don't know if you used a tripod for this, guessing you did, but sometimes I battle with mine, sometimes I hate mine and just do not want to carry it. Another fun technique to try is to use multiple exposure. Some of the mirrorless cameras have in-camera multiple exposure now, and you can see what you're doing real time lining static subjects up. It looks really cool with water also, and you don't even have to necessarily use a slow shutter speed.
Shadow Figure by Bill Keaton, 24 points, honorable mention.
George said, love this image. Me being a Day of the Dead fan, you should see my collection. Solid composition and clarity in the characters. Maybe too clear. What held me back from giving it a 9 was it could have been more mysterious.
Strike Up the Band by Glenn Petranic, 23 points.
Reflections, reflections, and more reflections, Mark says. This is another fun image due to the confusing overlap of multiple reflections. While not abstract, it makes use of abstractions to pull your eye into the mannequin and surrounds it with a lot of fun shapes. Placement of the mannequin offset to the left works well with the rest of the composition, and cropping the lettering at the top takes away a potential distraction while adding a layer to the image, creating more depth, like a landscape.
The Rush by Graham Stead, 22 points.
Susan says, spooky. Love it. I love the leading lines of what I see being skulls with water for hair. Is that what others see? I hope so. I would love it if the saturated green color continued all the way to the top of the image. Nice crop for this image, and I love the movement you created.
Waterfall Witches, Bill Keaton, 21 points.
Chris says, turn on your mic. George says, what a strange wedding photo. You have this couple posing in front of a covered bridge, maybe a bridesmaid next to them, and this monkey who doesn't look real. Oh, I find it very interesting.
Wedding Day by John Paganini, 21 points.
Mark says, here the maker took advantage of the opportunity to move away from a photograph toward fine art. The texture applied to the background gives the image the impression of an oil painting and works very well with the choice of background image. Both create a sense of antiquity. However, the maker chose not to apply the brushstrokes to the woman, rather presenting a very smooth, almost flat surface. This contrast works well to create separation between the subject and the background, almost as if the woman wasn't part of the image. A good example of creating depth in a two-dimensional image. While she could be from the same era as the background, the intentional separation allows a viewer to decide for themselves.
When Words Fail, Dance Speaks by Susan Bestel, 25 points, third place.
Susan says, the yellow-purple color combo here is a great choice. They go together beautifully. I would love it if you spent more time composing this image. I think there are many compositions in this image, and there might be a stronger one than what is here in front of us. If you look on the glass stone on the right-hand side, there appears to be a center-like circle, like the center of the flower with purple petals going down and yellow ones going up. I think that little intimate scene is super creative and more impactful. I cannot say, as I was not there, if you were even able to get to that little vignette, but if possible, I would go back and look. I think this wider scene is just a bit too busy. I love the concept, the subject matter, colors, all of it. The focal point just needs to be narrowed down more.
Yellow Flower Refraction by Ron Werman, 20 points.
George says, nice balance between soft focus and sharp focus in this image. I get the feeling of impending doom with this building trying to hold its own against all odds.
Abandoned Homestead by Gary Marich, 23 points.
Mark says this is a very well executed and interesting study of the Washington Monument. Exposure and focus are good, capturing a crisp image of the monument. The image appears a bit too centered for me. While the bright sky is offset by the dark foreground and reflecting pond, I'm drawn to crop space off of the top of the image to push the horizon off center. It's a small change, but the minute I crop the top, my eye wants to stay focused on the central image. Otherwise, it keeps wandering up to that brighter sky.
Citizen's Perspective by Jordan Tetzel, 22 points.
Susan says, what can I possibly say? Absolutely stunning. Beautiful location, gorgeous subjects. I can't believe the scene is real. It's just too perfect, honestly. I am guessing a composite. Scale might be the only thing to tip me off. Either way, you do insanely good work. Congrats.
Dance is the Art of the Soul by Susan Bestel, 26 points, second place.
A solid composition, balancing serenity and dynamic energy. There is a nice inner light coming from inside of the statue, according to George.
Fire Buddha by Jerry Pano, 24 points, honorable mention.
There is a wispy, ethereal sense to this image, Mark says. The maker did a nice job of merging the ICM image with one of the boardwalks to create a pathway to another dimension. At first, I didn't notice the lily pads and water showing through the railing on the right side, but once I did, it became a distraction. I would suggest the maker try to blend the area into the ICM or intentional camera movement image more so the boardwalk seems to float more.
Into the Marsh by Jill Zabka, 22 points.
Susan says, yes, another one of my favorite images of the night. Ohio Winter meets Game of Thrones. I think the combining of images here really works. The layering of texture also helps to add mood and cover up any teensy compositing oopsies. I don't see any, just as an observation. Composition-wise, I think you could take out the front horse and it would be even stronger. It bugs me a little that the front horse merges with that frozen tree. Again, I just love this mood, texture, scene. Very well done.
Migration by Nancy Murniak, 24 points, honorable mention.
George says, another Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Nice, clear photo of the building. You can use this as a postcard. Composition-wise, I think this image is too far left. Either reduce the amount of water from the top and eliminate some of the parking on the right.
Rock and Roll Hall redesigned by Joe DiStefano, 19 points.
Mark says, this is a very nice image conveying abandonment and loneliness. The texture of the walls almost peels off the image. The use of selective color greatly enhances the scene of isolation. Focus and exposure are both right on. At first glance, I didn't understand why there was so much empty space on the left side of the image. After a long look, I saw the sign in the top left with solitude spelled out. While it does relate to the overall image, I think it's a distraction and doesn't contribute to the image. Cropping about half the space out between the column and left edge and removing the sign would, in my opinion, take a great image and make it better.
Solitude by Jackie Sayuski, 25 points, third place.
Susan says, I wish I had more experience in architectural photography. This looks pretty cool. I think I am more of a traditionalist, as this is a bit dizzying to me. I am sure it was not easy to do, however, vertical pano. I would clone out some of the spotlights on the ceiling center and darken down the tube lights, the first 4 in the image. I would also clean up some of the random lights at the top of the image in the arches. I love the sharpness throughout and the symmetry.
St. John's Cathedral by Ron Werman, 22 points.
George says, a pretty photo of fall colors and the stream with the waterfall. The trees seem to dominate this photo. There is an unreal quality that adds interest to this photo.
Sulphur Springs Falls by Glenn Petranek, 21 points.
This is another fun image, Mark says. The lighting is interesting and mirroring the main subject in the bottom right corner, balances out the composition nicely. I'm personally prone to cropping everything I see, including my own images, every time I look at them. With that said, the composition is presented as good, but I find the swooping part of the object on the left side seems to lead my eye off the left of the page and think cropping it almost to the vertical line or just cropping to a square format would make it a stronger image. But in the end, it's your image, not mine, so take that for what it's worth.
Sunlit Table by Brian O'Riordan, 22 points.
Susan says, I love all the tones here. Everything works together so well. I don't know if that sign in the bottom right is in the scene, but in a photograph it is a bit distracting, and I would clone that out personally. The scene is really well balanced, and I love the placement of the Guardian.
Terminal Guardian by John Paganini, 22 points.
George says, maybe I have a thing against filters. Rather than finding the image compelling, I find it confusing. This is a roller coaster that is abstracted to the point where I could hardly tell what it is. I would also have cropped the bottom part of the photo, another element that confuses the image.
Woozy by Fran Marino, 20 points. And that concludes our creative images. Would you like to take a few-minute break or continue on?
I'm personally fine. Does anybody need a break? Just
Okay.
plow through it.
Okay, we will start our pictorial now.
Mark says this is a very nice romantic scene with the horse and model well placed. The lighting is a bit dreamy, creating a mood, but appears a bit flat. Specifically, I like to see the horse and model lightened so they stand out a bit more from the background. I'm also finding that my eye wanders to the group of flowers behind and to the left of the tree. While I like the overall image, I need more direction from the maker to keep me focused on the subject in this case.
A Still Moment by Nancy Mierniak, 24 points, third place.
Susan says, lovely motion in the water and perfect sharpness in the rocks and stone structures. For me personally, I would love for this to be a straight, scenic photograph. The archways take away from the calm and relaxing atmosphere the entire scene provides. The S-curve running the image is lovely.
Autumn at Berea Falls by Melanie Plummer, 22 points.
George says, nice composition. I like the balance with the dynamic rushing water next to the little still water pool. Oops. Nature can be forceful as well as peaceful. Beautiful textures in the leaves and in the rock, contrasted with the out-of-focus rushing water. A winner image for sure.
Autumn Leaves and Rushing Water by Melanie Plummer, 22 points.
This is a nicely executed capture of the silhouetted couple, Mark says. They are well placed in the background, and their gesture helps them stand out. While the couple and the ride are basically centered in the image, I think it works because the top of the ride is angled and moving. Two things take away from the image. While the couple are identifiable, they blend into the foreground a bit. I'd suggest lighting the foreground so they are more obvious, and I find the bright blue lighting on the right side of the ride distracting.
Basking in the Glow by Fran Marino, 20 points.
Susan says, amazing shapes and colors. All the elements complement each other in the scene, so well done. I would just watch this time of day. It can be tricky with shadows. I don't know if that is you in the bottom of the scene or not, but scooting back and using a longer lens will help to make sure you are not in the shot, or maybe try to shoot closer to midday. Love the graphic quality of this image.
Charleston, South Carolina by Susan Mahorsic, 22 points.
According to George, a good photographer is one who can see a scene as simple as this and realize its potential for a good photo. The mystery about what's behind these windows and doors and the safety of the illuminated hallway between them.
Charleston, South Carolina 2, Susan Mahorsic, 21 points.
Mark says this is a very nice image of a stairway. The exposure is good with detail in the shadows and no blown out areas. The angle the maker chose to shoot leads you up the stairs and around to the right. While the handrail partially blocks the stained glass window, the maker captures enough of it to enhance the image but not have it distract from the stairway. The bluer tone of the light in the stairway makes it appear that it's more natural and that a window or skylight is above, further inviting one to ascend the stairs. The only suggestion, if possible, would be to get a wider angle lens. But we all have our wish list, don't we?
Cuyahoga County Courthouse by Glenn Petranic, 24 points, third place.
Susan says, take me there. Who doesn't love Tuscany, presuming this is it? The light and shadow, the rolling hills, and simple tree lines. For me, the brighter part in the top of the image is a bit distracting and really does not need to be included in the image. Even if you cropped it just a little lower to just above the house in the background, I think it would make a stronger image. This is just a beautiful classic shot either way.
Early Morning in the Tuscan Countryside by Susan Vestal, 23 points, honorable mention.
George says, good composition. I like the clarity of the textures, the force of nature against the driftwood, and the rock.
Erie Shores by Jerry Payno, 20 points.
Mark says the maker applied classic landscape composition utilizing objects in the foreground, middle ground, and background to build layers and depth. They also used a good depth of field so most of the image appears in good focus and the overall exposure is good but a bit flat. My question to the maker in this case would be, what did you want to highlight? The bridge or the rock in the foreground? I'm guessing that the photo is of the bridge, but the rock is so prominent that my eye either stops there and never moves into the image, or it keeps jumping back and forth to the rock. I tried putting a linear gradient mask on the bottom of the image to darken it, and another mask to brighten and increase saturation of the bridge to highlight it and make it more dramatic.
Everett Road Covered Bridge by Eric Botsky, 20 points.
Susan says, nice and clean shot. I would love to see a bit more impact with this. I know a different sky was out of your control unless you add some big puffy clouds or storm clouds. I love the diagonal angle of the plane.
F-18 Super Hornet by Eric Wethington, 19 points.
George says, composition-wise, it works. I would have cropped the image with less sky. Not that exciting of an image, but it does tell a story of an event.
Fly High by Brian O'Riordan, 22 points.
Mark says this is a great product shot of the car. Lighting is good with nice highlight, making it stand out in the scene. It almost appears that the car was lit separately from the plane, which is a bit confusing. Not bad, just a bit surreal. I'm also left wondering what connection the two have. I believe the plan is an old Ford Trimotor, so maybe there's a connection, but it's not that obvious. Compositionally, the plane somewhat overwhelms the plane somewhat overwhelms the car. Possibly creating greater separation between the two would make a difference.
Ford Thunderbird and Ford Trimotor by John Paganini, 25 points, second place.
Susan says, I love the dark background on this, so dramatic. The sharpness and crispness in the flower is quite nice and works well with the black background. I would love it if the light was a bit softer on the flower and without shadows. Maybe play with a diffuser. Black and white conversion. Crop this and turn it and place it like a rising sun in the bottom of the photograph. So many options. I have just started playing again with flower photography and love all the options we have with a subject that doesn't talk back.
Gardenia sur Noir, Gary Marich, 22 points.
George says, to me this photo lacks excitement. Too symmetrical, too much black around the lights. Cropping it to its borders might help. Would help make an image more abstract.
Lighted Tree at the Zoo by Jen Cockrell, 18 points.
Mark says this is a well-exposed image with good contrast detail in the shadows, but receding to full black in places. The color of the water and wood are rendered well, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want to be hanging from those ropes to capture this image. The image is a bit confusing in that I'm not quite sure what the maker is trying to convey to me. The leading lines created by the ropes leading to the deck pull my eye downward to the messy pile of ropes on the deck. Are these the subject? Is the messiness the point? I'm not really sure. If they are, working with masks or layers to highlight some of the ropes, say the three on the left, would help me as a viewer understand better.
Lots of Running Lines and Rat Lines by Dan Hennessy, 21 points.
Susan says, love the black and white conversion here. The sky is so stunningly dramatic and the reflection just picture perfect. For me, the rocks peeking into the frame on the left in the water distract and should definitely be cloned out. Other than that, just perfection.
Many Glaciers Lodge by Bob Kowaleski, 22 points.
George says, nice sharp focus on the rocks and minerals in this photo. Again, not that interesting to me as a photo. Maybe different cropping would have helped.
Minerals from Elba, Italy by Dan Hennessy, 19 points.
Timing is everything, Mark says, but Photoshop can work wonders too. This is a great capture. Focus and exposure is spot on, but I can't tell you if this was created in Photoshop or the maker captured it in real time. They appear to be numbered differently, but the numbering on the upper plane appears upside down. If the latter, bravo for your timing. Either way, it's a great image and well composed. The mirroring of the two jets lends itself to a more balanced, centered composition, but the maker made sure to place them with plenty of room in front of them so the jets don't appear trapped or cramped.
Mirror Image on a Knife's Edge by Eric Botsky, 23 points, honorable mention.
Susan says, stunning. Love the detail in the flower, the light in the center of the flower, the color of the flower, the black background. The only thing I would do is darken down the stem of the flower. I find it a bit distracting. Simply beautiful and a different way of photographing a flower. Love it.
Pink Dahlia by Marge Brady, 23 points, honorable mention.
George says, good contrast between the rigid structure of the building and the fluid image of the reflection on the glass. Looks like the photographer purposely edited the reflection on the bottom and put solid blue to balance the image and add an element of mystery.
Playhouse Square Reflection by Ron Werman, 23 points, honorable mention.
Mark says, tons of fun had by all. This is a joyous scene and the maker did a good job capturing the moment. The depth of field is good. Isolated the three subjects from the foreground and background. The colored fan in the girl's hand gives a sense of place and purpose to the gathering. Cropping the person on the left almost out of the image creates a nice border and gives the image some depth, as does the crop of the gentleman on the right. However, I might crop a bit tighter to eliminate his eye, which is a bit distracting but also provides a border to keep your eye in the image. One last note. The guy in the background looking toward the subjects again brings the viewer back, holding you where the maker wants.
Pride Solidarity, Richard Ader, 23 points, honorable mention.
Susan says, I really like this gentle scene. The muted color palette all works so well together here. I traveled in Asia for many years and had a term called Asia gray skies and worked to avoid them at all costs. This sky reminds me of those days. The colors work with the scene, but I think it also overwhelms it a bit. Taking a higher vantage point, stepping back some, and zooming in with a longer lens could all help achieve this. I also think you have this great, wonderful dress for the scene model here and could have worked that aspect, and that log, don't get me started. I would have her on there in a second. Oh wait, I guess we don't even know if you knew the subject, do we? All in all, a very nice image that I am sure this person would love to have. Good job.
Sea of Galilee by Richard Ader, 22 points.
George says, nice serene looking seascape. You have a feeling of distance and solitude. Good color contrast between the ochre and the blue.
Seashore Colors by Bob Kowaleski, 24 points, third place.
Mark says, the maker did a very nice job of capturing this balloon. It's sharp, well exposed with detail in the shadows and the passengers in the basket. Being a single balloon, the image is a bit static and doesn't jump out at me immediately. Placement towards the bottom left quadrant definitely leads me to feel that the balloon is rising up and to the right. One nit is a spot of blue at the top right of the image. It is distracting and contributes little to the overall image. I'd suggest cropping it out or cloning it.
Sunny Balloon by John Harford, 22 points.
Susan says, wow, model, location, clothing choice, pose, just amazing. I love how the right hand has a bit of separation from the tutu. Totally nitpicking here, but next time be aware of the hand on the door. I am sure not easy for the model to do, but if she could make those 4 fingers just a bit more delicate, Turn to the side, maybe. I love how the flower pot on top is peeking through the door. Love this so much. Wish I took it.
Sunshine on My Shoulder by Jackie Siuski, 26 points, first place.
George says, wonderful action shot of the geese. Like the way the wings repeat themselves in the composition. One of the geese looks like it's taking off, the other looks like it's rolling over. Gives an interesting take to the scene.
The Dispute by John Harford, 21 points.
This is a very dramatic night scene, Mark says. It's well exposed, it's very sharp, and has great depth of field. The tonality shows that different lighting was in use in different parts of the scene. But I'm struggling to understand the scene. I don't see enough of the tent structure, but is the brightest object in the image, leading me to think it's the subject. The foreground elements, walkways, appear to lead me back toward the tent, but don't seem to get me there. Again, judging is one person's reaction, but the scene is confusing and doesn't force me to step into the scene and experience it.
Tyson's Station by Jordan Tetzel, 20 points.
Susan says, the Jawa theme is playing in my head. I don't know what this is, but I love it. I love the movement, like it's a ship coming toward me, and the gray is a sea of water. Trying to think of something I would do to improve this image, and I honestly just can't. I love it.
Which Way to Go by Joe DiStefano, 24 points, third place.
George says, the sharp, clear image combined with the strange colorization of this reptile gives it a surreal feeling to this shot, to this photo. The reptile body almost looks metallic. The yellow in its teeth and grass is unsettling. It is an engaging image.
A Very Content Italian Alligator by Dan Hennessy, 20 points.
Mark says, again, my first impression is fun. Overall, the subject is having fun. The drummer is well exposed, but highlights in the drum are high enough to be distracting. The composition is pretty busy, making it difficult to determine the maker's thoughts. I like the doubling up of the drummer's image on the right, but the hair on the right is overemphasizing, pulling my attention away from the rest of the image. I'd suggest cropping it tighter on the left to see if that pushes the viewer's eyes back to the center of the image.
Anne Rock of the Super Babes by Graham Stead, 19 points.
Susan says, love this viewpoint. The bridge is beautiful. I would love to see this taken at blue hour, 20 to 30 minutes after sunset, so that there would be a bit more brightness in the water. Have you played with some of the presets in Lightroom in My Panels? Now there is a cloud panel with things like storm clouds, sunset clouds. So fun to play with if you haven't seen it. Great job with sharpness and controlling the highlights on the bridge in the scene.
Arthur Ravenel Jr. Bridge, Charleston, South Carolina by Susan Mahorsick, 22 points.
George says, this photo has a wonderful color harmony to it. Solid composition combined with perfect light makes engaging photo. There is nothing I could suggest to improve this image.
Busy Nighttime Provincetown Harbor by Mike Kopkis, 19 points.
This is a very nice image of a bird of prey, Mark says. Eyes are tack sharp, exposure of the bird is good, and depth of field allowed the maker to get great detail in the feathers. Because the bird is looking over its shadow, the image lends itself to a square format very well. My only suggestion would be to darken the background. It's bright enough that it's competing with the subject and making the separation of the bird's head from the background a bit tough.
Cooper's Hawk, Maybe, by Bob Kowaleski, 23 points, honorable mention.
Susan says, what a great portrait. Beautiful black and white conversion. There is a debate between how many catchlights should be shown in the eye. I have never really cared and like that we can figure out what light modifiers were used when seeing them. It might be fun to see what just one catchlight in each eye looks like here though. I see a bit of leaves in the background. I think I would either have them show up more or get rid of them. Great job with the glasses also. I know from experience that can be a beast sometimes.
Hilda, age 87, Portrait of Mother, by Melanie Plummer, 21 points.
George says, okay composition, but I would have cropped it more. More duck, less water. Nice clear photo of the subject. The waves look like they were manipulated. I don't think this was necessary.
Male Wood Duck, by John Harford, 21 points.
Mark says this is a nice portrait shot of the reptile. The maker nailed the focus on the eye and had good enough depth of field to hold detail for most of the body and separate the creature from the background. I think that as a portrait, the composition is good and allows the maker to crop the feet out of the image, but that makes the image pretty static. While the exposure is great on the subject, the background is pretty bright, and I'd suggest masking it off and dialing the exposure down, possibly desaturating it a bit too.
Mating Colors, by Bill Keaton, 23 points, honorable mention.
Susan says, so beautiful. I love the light on the subject. The background is perfect for the subject. This is sharp where it needs to be, and I feel like not a hair is out of place on our subject. Just stunning. I can't say anything to improve this. Can I pass? Is that an option? Simply lovely.
Milkweed Seed Pod, by Dave Saborik, 24 points, third place.
According to George, there is wonderful composition and coloring in this photo. You get the feeling of stillness, of getting up in the morning and watch the fog obscuring the landscape. The contrast between the blues and sepias is engaging.
Morning Mist, by Marge Brady, 25 points, second place.
The maker did a nice job capturing this landscape, Mark says. They've included the classic foreground, middle ground, and background while maintaining good depth of field. The exposure is good in the foreground, and unless your timing is perfect, difficult to get the mountains lit well. I'm a bit conflicted by the inclusion of the railroad tracks. I understand that they were there and there's not much you can do about that, but wonder if you've moved to the other side of them, would the image have been, or what would the image have been? But you've done a nice job of incorporating them into the middle ground of the image and using the slight curve towards you to your advantage. Placement of the brush on the left overlapping the tracks does a nice job of blending them into the image so they don't cut it in half. It's a well executed and composed image. Just wish we could drop an old steam locomotive on the tracks or something.
Peaceful Evening, Beluga Point, by Eric Botsky, 22 points.
Susan says, great portrait, wonderful blurry background and sharp subject. I love that you kept both eyes in focus even though the subject was not looking directly at you. With that stunning eye makeup, I hope you have a few where the subject is looking directly at you. Even play with an 85mm 1.4 or 1.8 lens. Someone with this eye makeup screams for it to be used on them. Can you imagine two sharp eyes going off into beautiful bokeh? Love all the beautiful colors in this image.
Pride Day, by Richard Ader, 21 points.
George says, this photo doesn't work for me. The composition is fine, and there is a lot of interesting things going on, but the plants and the flowers were manipulated by a filter, so they look unreal. Like the photographer was trying to make it look like a decorative design. It just it just has me asking why.
Victorian Bouquet by Jane Sidney, 18 points. And that concludes our pictorial, and that includes our competition night for creative. So I want to thank everyone who submitted images, and thank you all for coming.
Congrats to the winners.